welcome to Toque Talk, episode 70 today.
70?
Oh,
wow.
Imagine that.
That's a lot.
Nice Tim Hortons mug.
This is the fancy Tim Hortons cup I got from our last trip to Canada together.
That's a gooder.
It's got a little sheen to it. It's beautiful.
But it's not
very sugary
It's
coffee.
not your name on it like Brent's. So let's see that again, Brent.
Well, if I need to promote, yes, it is a Fitzy cup. It's also Pierogi Monster from my good friends from Mr. Pierogi in Winnipeg, right? Who have those killer vegan pierogies.
Is that in Winnipeg?
Well, yeah, just outside of. And usually if we're lucky enough to have them shipped down to the States.
Outside like Stonewall from the legend Joey Dandon was from?
It is really close to Stonewall, yeah. It is.
I'm starting to know all the geography around Winnipeg based on
Did you know that Darren Moore is from Stonewall as well? Todd.
I did not know that, no.
We literally have been hanging out with many Stonewall musicians lately. So
Stonewall's greatest.
Stonewall's greatest. Hey, I'm looking on the comments. Just before we even started, I was I
got to turn my comments on.
Little United Nations. Hello from Victoria, Australia. Hello from Buenos Aires, Florida, Germany, and Holland. Look at that, guys. That's pretty awesome. Hi.
That's amazing. Wow.
That is awesome.
Hello, everybody.
This is our first day only on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
We've been streaming to 3 different places, and we just decided to consolidate everything. So
that makes sense.
This is a new thing for us. Yeah.
Buenos
Tina. Hey, Alf.
One of the greatest places in the world, period.
From the house. Yeah. Thomas, Florida. Hey, Thomas.
Florida. Can't go wrong.
And
hey,
I
Thomas
see
Hendricks.
you on the romper room, too.
Yeah, exactly.
The romper room.
Sad news
Little
today,
Beach.
gentlemen. Sad news today with the passing of Canadian legend Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald.
I happened to run into, I was doing a thing at the Hard Rock here in Vegas, which is now the Virgin, but and I'm literally getting on the elevator and Norm walks off and I go, Norm, and he goes, hey, and I go, hey, I'm from Canada, and he goes, no way. It's funny how that Canadian conversation can just spark anything, and he's like, oh wow. We kind of hung out and talked a little bit, got a picture, and then have a good night. He was there with it was him, I think Adam Sandler and David Spade were all doing like a live show at the joint. That was a huge show, and I just happened to be doing something at the Hard Rock Cafe, and then I was in the casino, and then you know what else? It's just a super sad thing. The fact that he had kept his sickness quiet for so long.
How did he die? I didn't actually hear what happened.
It was cancer of some sort. I'm not sure, but he kind of kept it under wraps, and then it's just tragic. It really affected me, but hopefully, hopefully he didn't suffer too much. But Norm Macdonald was a huge Winnipeg Jets fan. How do you like that?
Yeah.
Well, who isn't?
Well, now I miss him even more.
That's his greatest downfall, I guess.
Yeah.
Settle down.
The only negative thing you could say about Norm today?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, speaking of Winnipeg, I went to the Raiders home opener football game last night.
Oh, that's right.
There was a bunch of the Golden Knights guys were there in a little group, and they sort of put them on the big screen, and people went crazy for them. But Mark Stone, of course, captain of the team, was there, and I went with Jeff Lowry, another fine Winnipegger, to the game, and we ran into Mark Stone as we were walking around, and of course we did the.
Is he a St. James guy, or is he a?
Yeah, we did the proverbial like, hey man, how's it go? We're from you're from Westwood. We went to John Taylor and Sturgeon, he's like, right on. Yeah, I went to Westwood. We're like, okay, cool. Well, see you later. What do you say? I mean, geez.
Well, he's probably surrounded by other Canadian guys, so it's not quite as weird for him to be like, oh, wow, really?
No.
Do you remember when we introduced ourselves to, he's passed now, sadly, but the dude from Glee? Is that what he was from?
Yes. First season. Remember, he was a new superstar, the kid.
Mm-hmm. It was really sad. He had some problems, but we were doing Ellen together with Slash and Adam, Maroon 5 Adam, whose name escapes me.
Yeah,
Adam Levine. Thank you. It's like starting to turn into like a dad now. You know, the guy from that thing, the group there with the but and he was there. He was one of the guests. He was a guest, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld. It was a very last minute. It was Mother's Day, and my parents were here, and it kind of came up like we just kind of like, hey, we can be on Ellen. Can you guys be out here? And I was like, okay, can I bring my parents? And they sat in the audience watching Ellen that day, filming and all that kind of stuff, which is a super high energy show for anybody who's ever seen the show. Lots of dancing and running around. And whatnot.
I think it's interesting. Those afternoon shows are almost more popular for people like that are our parents' friends. Because I remember you and I have been on Leno, and Corey, you've done all these shows too. Leno and the late night talk shows. But the second we did Ellen, all of a sudden friends of my parents were like, wow, I didn't know, Todd and Brent and the guys are, they must be doing really good. But it's always Ellen. And Corey, Kelly Clarkson, that show is prime time in the afternoon.
Too, yeah.
It's got to be huge because I've been at my parents the last couple of weeks, in Winnipeg, and it's on every day. They're literally watching it every day.
The season opener was yesterday from New York. It looked really, really cool.
Oh, I
think she should do her show from there. She was overlooking Central Park or something like that.
Cool.
But there was a big glass window behind her, and Chris Martin from Coldplay was on.
I saw that.
And they had a nice studio audience. They weren't just like putting those screens, like they've been doing during COVID. So that's nice.
Oh, that's cool.
She's big time now. I mean, she always was, but second season now. It was only supposed to be one season with an option. So obviously it's doing good. And she's going to be taking place of Ellen next year. This is Ellen's last season.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah. So good for Kelly.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, the kid who won an American Idol and was going to be a pop singer now is like, has a talk show and a chat show, as they say in England. And it's amazing. Good for her.
Yep. She's exactly the way she is on her TV show in person. She's just real. There's no stage Kelly and then off stage Kelly. She's the same person.
Right.
You
That's
can
cool.
tell.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. I think it's cool that you're involved too, Corey, because, kudos to you for being a go-to, play violin, play guitar.
It's nice of them to call me every once in a while. I like being on the show.
Awesome.
It's fun to see all those guys again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what else is going on? Today they're shooting an episode of SWAT, literally across the street from my house. Do you guys know that show SWAT?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it's like they have blocks kind of, there's cops everywhere, and security. So I'm hoping it'll go into the evening and they'll actually have like a SWAT stakeout where they have like the SWAT vehicles. But it looks pretty big. That huge catering tents down at the end of the road. And
you mean like in your neighborhood, like or on like Ventura,
right across the street?
Oh, wow!
Literally, it's kitty corner or caddy corner. What do you say? Kitty? Caddy?
What, kitty?
Caddy. I say kitty too. Yeah. I hear all the Americans say caddy.
I know. I don't know I think that's sort of original thing. It's up there with roof.
Roof. Yeah.
On the roof of the house. I don't know what that.
Yeah. So as we look at our front window, it's just like people everywhere and cameras and those Quixote trailers where the talent goes.
Yeah.
And,
Take some pictures. I got to see that.
It's like the time I was on Cops when they raided my trailer. That's a whole other. We'll get into that later. Hey, were you on Cops? Yes. I used to know this guy. I used to know this guy who played drums in this Neil Diamond tribute, and it's totally like probably not a good joke to tell these days, but it was always like, okay, and so on guitar, and so on this, and he would say, and on drums, this guy, and I understand you were on TV recently. It was always like the same joke every night. And he'd say, yeah, I was just on Maury Povich. And he goes, oh yeah, well that's great. He goes, yeah, it was the Deadbeat Dads episode. I was like, what? I laughed, but I don't know how funny that is in today's.
So Brent, what you got up with the band at the football game, and what did you do?
Yeah, I had 2 banner days. I guess I'm in sport mode. Yeah, I went to, in Winnipeg, I went to the Bombers, the famous Banjo Bowl. So we got to talk, guys, because our 2 teams.
That's Saskatchewan against Winnipeg every year.
Yeah, and it's a huge rivalry, right? And it's named the Banjo Bowl because of snide marks made between the teams, right? Referring to those banjo picking fans or something. Anyway, it was awesome because I was back home. But
before you go any farther, what's the best compliment you can pay a banjo player?
Playing in key, like I don't know. What's the joke?
Nice tooth.
Well, you know the difference between a trampoline and a banjo. Take your shoes off to jump on the trampoline. And
oh my god!
Just kidding.
Now we got
go ahead. Sorry.
Letters from angry banjo players.
Yeah.
I actually I had to ask the guys in the band. I go, so I know we're going to play at the game. So they have a house band, right? With some friends of ours, Jen Hansen's lead singer, and Corey, you should have rolled up. Your team needed your support. Your Rough Riders needed your support. Well, basically,
it did not win.
It was sold out. There was like a sold out crowd. It was awesome to be there because, everything's been closed down a lot. So going to outdoor sporting events is actually very cathartic. If you can go to a concert, and I know, Todd, you've been playing on the weekend. You did some outdoor shows too. Mm-hmm. Like, it was amazing. So I got to sit in with the band, and, it's my hometown team. It was awesome. And then, we played a bunch of, it's funny. My friend Jen, she laughs. She goes, well, Brent, we kind of play a lot of it's basically Toque. She goes, we kind of play a lot of Toque at the game. And I go, well, it's not our thing, it's celebrating all the Canadian music. That's why we do it. She goes, well, we just like a lot of the songs you guys do. So we've been playing some of those songs during the Bomber game. So that was an honor too. So we got to play I played Patio Lanterns, Kim Mitchell, which we don't do, but which was an awesome tune, taking care of business. And, and we did some country.
To be fair, most Canadian bands do play all that music because it's, it's just, it'd be wedged in with Rebel Yell and whatever else, but they do play a ton of Canadian music because that's how we do it.
And there was
Here for a Good Time, right? That's another one we don't do, but every other band does, including my cover bands back in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah,
Here for a Good Time. It's always like last set, so everybody can sing along and get on the dance floor and
spill their drink. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good. And then I came back and I went to football last night. So I'm still kind of going. I went to 2 football games, CFL and NFL, and they were both awesome. But
nice.
So here we are.
Well, there you go.
That Allegiant Stadium is something else, though, isn't it? Here in Las Vegas.
I know you went for the tour, right, Todd? It's just beautiful.
I haven't seen a show there or anything like that, but it's they call it the Death Star, as you know.
Yeah,
it looks really modern and really, really serious in there. Yeah,
it was a very black jersey crowd last night. It was like if the team didn't win, I was worried what was going to happen.
For a riot.
It was a little rough, because there was probably 50,000 people.
We were probably at one of the last brand new football stadiums when they built the one in New Jersey for the Jets. Remember that?
Well, but we played the opening night. Remember, like first game.
Yeah.
What was that? Like we played the the tailgate at the beginning, and
it was
Jason Bonham was with us.
Jason Bonham and Nicole from the Pussycat Dolls was there.
Yeah, right.
But then there was like a storm that occurred, and they made us not play for fear of people dying from like lightning and stuff. And I was like, okay. I wasn't that concerned, but if you are, then I'd rather be on safe than sorry. Yeah. It was fun.
We played a Shania show one time that outdoors during a storm, and the lighting tower got hit.
What?
I shouldn't laugh, but the lighting technician, the guy doing the light show, it came through the board and zapped him and like threw him back.
No shit.
Wow.
I think he was okay.
Corey, have you played Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah. You win.
You win when it was in San Diego.
That's right. Yeah, you guys played halftime in San Diego,
along with Sting and No Doubt. All 3 acts were on the bill. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I like to say, when people ask, I say I've literally played on the streets of Vancouver to the Super Bowl and everything in between.
There you go.
Absolutely right. Yeah. You have.
Mm-hmm. I played on the streets of Vancouver to the streets of Las Vegas. It's been a real journey for me. No, I didn't even play on the streets.
Come on, you've been on Ellen, Todd. You win.
But I was on Ellen.
Yeah, you were on Ellen, man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was also on her show. That didn't sound right. Is the Kiss Cruise going to happen? As far as we know, the Kiss Cruise is happening. So I don't know, Alf. That's a good question. We hope so. It is definitely on the calendar. I really haven't heard any sort of thoughts otherwise, but anything can. It's all touch and go in this crazy world of ours. But for now, it's a go.
I'm curious. He says he needs a USA vaccine to go to the Kiss Cruise, and he's from Argentina. What is it that he has taken? Is it the AstraZeneca or whatever it's called?
Probably.
Well, there was something going on with in Canada where they were crossing the streams of 2 different. But they had, according to the USA, the WHO, it has to be the same 2
brand.
Same
brand.
Vaccines,
yeah.
So I don't know,
because Alberta now, we just heard, is all their ICUs are full.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It's a mess. And I also heard that they were like 85% vaccinated, but maybe that's what was going on. They're like mixing their vaccines, right? Because they wanted to get all of Canada with one shot before they even gave anybody a second shot.
I don't know.
It's pretty wild, guys, because we were just there like a month ago. Not even.
If anybody's thirsty.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
What are you drinking? What do you got?
A bubbly.
Michael
Bublé's beverage.
What flavor, Todd? Is that the watermelon?
Smells like grapefruit.
Okay. That's always a good one.
Grapefruit bubbly. There we go. It makes me feel festive.
We got a really great shoe today, folks. Let's bring on our guest.
Please.
Shall we?
Yeah.
All right. This guy started probably earlier than all of us in the entertainment industry. He was just a baby, and we got pictures to prove it. He doesn't know that yet. Rob Preuss, he's coming on. He played with the Spoons. I think he joined them when he was like 15 years old or something like that. And then, of course, he went on to replace.
You just keep going. I'm gonna play the music in the background. Tell no lies. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay.
Arias and Symphonies. Love that tune. I'm gonna ask him all about that. I'm gonna geek out on that for sure.
It's just a matter of time before YouTube comes in and shuts us down for copyright reasons. Be careful.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Then he went on to play with Honeymoon Suite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now he's living in New York City, big New York City, doing Broadway.
That's right.
And he's had all the same kind of problems we've had with COVID. So we'll hear all about that. And people don't know, or a lot of people don't know, some people do, that he was the one who taught Rami Malek to play keyboards on the Bohemian Rhapsody movie.
What? I did not know that.
Holy shit. I didn't know that. What?
That's really cool, right?
That's really
So
cool.
without further ado, everybody, please welcome to Toque Talk Tuesday, episode 70, Rob Preuss.
All right. Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Seuss.
Now that's an entrance.
Welcome.
Come on.
What's he got?
Oh,
I know.
Wow. Hilarious.
He's
I
more
want that
Canadian than
shirt.
us because he's always posting Canadian stuff on his Facebook feed. And today there was a huge story about the hilarious House of Frankenstein.
Yesterday was the 50th anniversary of, I guess.
Are you serious?
Yeah, the first episode in 71.
And Billy Van, we were just talking about this last week, how Billy Van, there is a museum of some sort.
That's where I got the shirt.
Oh, you did? In Hamilton, Ontario, where
Yes,
my wife's family's from.
And the museum has sadly closed down. A friend of mine actually from Hamilton texted me this morning because yesterday was the anniversary, and he said, yeah, it's closed. It's closed down. We actually went. It was really cool and really bizarre. But the guy who ran it was like a super enthusiastic guy who had, I think he's connected to a guy who wrote a book about Billy Van and stuff.
What?
Wow. And he like had it was like a little room in like this part of Hamilton where he would just tell you stories, and there was pictures of Billy, and he sold t-shirts.
That's so cool. I would like to get. Was there like a bunch of different t-shirts?
Well, actually, this was like the last of this was like from an official fan club thing from the old days, I guess. But apparently, there's a new line of officially licensed Frankenstein merchandise that Mitch Markowitz has released like yesterday to celebrate the anniversary. Because there's a new. He was super
Superman,
super
hippie,
yeah, with the big afro. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I can nerd out. I'm such a fan too. Look at this. I have this on my studio mantle. I actually have the count. It's my favorite show of all time.
I met Billy Van when I was 8 years old.
What? No way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
No way.
He came.
Amazing.
I mean, I don't know how it happened, but he came to Burlington, to my hometown, to the Burlington Public Library, and like did a special appearance. And so it would have been early mid 70s, you know. And
Crazy.
I don't know what he was pushing at the time. I don't know if he had something, but he was like a local guy, so he made an appearance, and you could go to the library, and it was like in one of the little social lounges, you know. And he like brought his Dracula teeth.
No,
and it was it was hilarious because all us kids were in the audience. We just wanted to see him and like ask him to do voices and stuff, right?
Igor.
So at the end, we went up and I got his autograph. So I still have this little autograph book with his autograph from. It was in 1974.
No way. For those that don't know,
so
we have to
awesome.
kind of plug in a lot of our international friends. The Hilarious House of Frankenstein was a show which was basically a one-man show. Billy would play multiple characters on there.
Yeah.
I think the only guy that wasn't Billy Van was the Igor dude.
Yep, and the mini Drac.
Mini Drac.
And the
That's
professor.
right.
And the professor.
Oh yeah, right. 'Cause
Julius Sumner.
He was the Wolfman. I am the Wolfman.
That was so awesome.
And Griselda, the gourmet,
Ghastly Gourmet,
the Ghastly Gourmet.
That's right.
And
the theme song there. I know you got a keyboard beside you. Do you know that theme song?
That's as far as I could go.
That's amazing.
He was the Oracle. Remember the Oracle?
He was the Oracle. Yep. Yeah. And the Swami, like the Ravi Shankar kind of guy with the sitar, and all the flowers would come down.
That's right. Yeah, he was.
It is written.
Yeah. It is written.
He was Dr. Petvet. Was he Dr. Petvet?
Yeah.
Dr. Petvet.
Oh yeah, he was all of them. Totally.
Amazing.
The sloth.
That was where I first heard like Magic Carpet Ride, Jumpin' Jack Flash, all those songs. I don't know what kind of copyright infringement he was causing, but he was playing all those songs.
Apparently, that's one of the things that has kept the show from being really re-released over the years. Was all the licensing for the music for the Wolfman episodes alone.
That makes sense.
Because at some point they had put them out, but they had used other music, which would have been weird because he was always dancing to like dance to the music, Sly and the Family Stone and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, they did that when they re-released WKRP. They had a whole bunch of issues with because they were like, Cat Scratch Fever, Ted Nugent, or whatever and they played Dream Police or whatever they would play.
Crazy.
But when it came to like trying to put them on DVD,
the Billy Van Singers.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? He had some sort of album and a band.
Wow.
Billy Van Singers. You guys got to go to YouTube later and check that out.
And for those that don't know, Burlington is like what, half an hour from Hamilton?
Yeah, about half an hour. Yeah,
it's very close. Yeah.
And I just realized, which is sort of weird. The same year that I met Billy Van, when I was 8, was also the same year that I did my first TV appearance. There was a show from Hamilton called Tiny Talent Time. And it was like the local, the kids would go on the show and the local news guy was the host of the show on Sunday afternoons. And I had been playing piano for a couple of years at that point, and my parents got me on the show somehow. So I played like Turkey in the Straw and like whatever in my early piano lessons, Yeah.
And to be clear though,
it's
not the talent that was tiny. It was the musician.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly.
That's amazing. Wow. So
what age did you actually start then? You started with classical music, right?
I did. Yeah. When I was 5, I started lessons and
same as me.
Really? So at 5, it's really not necessarily specifically classical. It's just whatever those really simple books are where you're just learning the notes and you're learning the fingerings and all that stuff, right? So the simplest songs. And I did my first piano recital when I was 5 as well. Like the song was called My Pony. It went so it's like, one hand, and that's as far as you got to go. But my teacher right away threw me into it. Like I had like 2 lessons and she's like, okay, we're doing a recital. She'd have all her students on a Sunday afternoon. So I was 5, which I have not specific memories of that, but I remember her teaching me how to bow and like all that kind of stuff,
No
way. And I was nervous, but I guess I just thought, well, she wants me to do it because I'd see older students like even more nervous than I was. And so I just sort of got used to it, So I started when I was 5, and it sort of led into the Royal Conservatory. The Royal Conservatory of Music was the standard. So from those early books, I switched to that, and I continued the Royal Conservatory stuff up to like grade 9 piano. When I was doing my grade 9 exam when I had just turned 16, so I was already in the spoons at that point, and I was doing my grade 9 exam.
That's right. Yeah, you were really young, right?
Yeah, and then the next
you joined.
Pardon me?
15 when you joined Spoons?
Yeah.
Wow.
Grade 11. Yeah.
So how did that happen? How did they?
Well, I knew the band was like, they were a local new wave band in Burlington. And a friend of mine who lived 2 doors down, his older brother was a friend of their managers. It's like a weird, like the interrelationships were sort of like, it was sort of fate in a way that I was getting into the new wave music at that point anyways. Oh, hello.
Wow. How old is that you? Is that 15-year-old you or 16-year-old?
Yes. No, that's 15-year-old me.
Wow.
Dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
How much older were they?
Gord they were all like 5-6 years older than me.
Crazy.
My hairline was down here at the time. It was amazing.
A 3-head.
Yeah, totally. But so I knew of the band, and I'd seen them play a couple of times in Burlington. I saw them play once in Hamilton. They opened for Martha and the Muffins. And then I saw them play in Burlington at the same library where I met Billy Van. And that turned out to be the last show for their original keyboard player who was with them for like the first year. And then like a week later, I was reading the Hamilton Spectator, and there was an ad in the paper that said spoons require keyboard player. I was like, holy shit, are you kidding me? Because I was like obsessed with the band. At that point, I had all their posters on my wall in my bedroom from their gigs in Toronto, even though I'd only seen them a couple of times. I just thought it was super cool that they were local guys, and I felt like they were like my people in a way. You know?
What if there was a band called the Keyboards looking for a spoon player? Did you ever think of that?
I couldn't have done that. That would have been my band.
The Keyboards. It's a terrible band.
So in this picture, you're looking pretty like, you know, you're keeping it together pretty well.
You look like
these are your idols beside you, right?
Yeah.
Are you sullying your pants at this moment?
You look like you're getting ready for a solo career already. You're kind of like stepping.
It's weird. You know, I look at pictures like that, and it's so weird because I remember the photo shoot and the weird random thing that people end up choosing, because I'm like halfway blinking. I look like I'm trying to be something else, you know, but it's like mid blink, and I was probably trying to get closer to them, but then they used the picture. So
it looks cool though. It works great.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're slightly separated from them, aren't you?
I know.
Like that's the new guy. We're not going to include the new guy yet.
New guy photo. Yeah.
The very first gig that I did with them, because Gord used to make all the posters for the shows in Toronto, and so the first show that I did with them, he had made a new poster for it, and he had all of our initials, and it said GSD and an R. So it was like the introduction to me, and so the night of my first gig was the night John Lennon was killed.
Oh my God, are you serious? At the Elmo Combo. Wow, there you go.
So there we are at the Elmo, yeah. But yeah, we played this club in Toronto called The Edge, and that was my first gig with the band.
Look at how you just look so young.
I know.
Like you look 10, Rob, in that photo.
Yeah, everybody looks young. It's crazy,
Yeah.
So here you are, you're in the band. Did you know how to like run synths at that point? Like program and all that? Because there weren't like presets back in those days, right?
There were sort of. The synth that I had was a Roland Jupiter 4, which was, I mean, this was 1980. So it was sort of the early days of affordable polyphonic synths as well. So I had a monophonic synthesizer, which my parents bought for me when I was 11. So I was joined my first rock band when I was 10. And I had an electric piano, which was enough to start with. Because it was just three of us in the band, and we played whatever was on the radio. We played Kiss songs, we played Fleetwood Mac songs, we played Queen songs.
Sure.
And I started reading Contemporary Keyboard magazine, and I was a little obsessed with that. And I would look at all the ads for synths. So my parents, I guess it's like the version of a hockey parent buying the gear for their kids, right? So my parents knew I needed to add something to my arsenal, so they got me this monophonic synth, which I still have to this day, and I ended up using with the spoons as well.
No way.
Cool.
But then after a few years, I knew I needed a new instrument, so I got this Roland 4. It was a 4-voice synth, so only 4 notes at a time. But that was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Like to play 4 notes was unbelievable because you could play a triad and a bass note, even though it was only 4 octaves. And it had a lot of presets, and then it had like 8 presets you could make yourself, 8 programmable spots. Okay. So I was in heaven. So I was sort of prepared for the gig in that way because I had some experience with the synthesizers already as well. Mm-hmm. So,
because it's one thing to play keyboards, and it's another thing to be, you know, a keyboard player.
Yeah, totally.
And know how to program. I think even he was the guy from Duran Duran. He never did any of his own programming.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we had the same keyboard. When we released our first album was actually the same year that they released their first album. He used the same synth I used, and I remember listening to their album going, "Oh, he's got all my sounds," because it was the Jupiter 4, and he was just hitting the string preset, and then he'd turn on the arpeggiator, and it sounded fantastic. But I was like, "Shit, it's the same sounds I'm using." But you realize it doesn't really matter because everybody else you learn to make the most of your limited palette of sounds, right?
Totally.
So I sort of appreciated that. So our first album, I only used the Jupiter 4. We had a guy come in. Actually, it was Hugh Syme who used to do all the artwork for Rush, and he owned a Mellotron, and I think he did some keyboard work with Rush as well. Wow. But he came in and played on our first album and played on a couple of tracks because they wouldn't let me touch the Mellotron. They're like, "You're 15, you won't know how to do the Mellotron."
So for people that don't know what a Mellotron is, it was kind of pre-digital. It was an actual keyboard that had tape loops in it.
Yeah.
So it would spin a tape when you hit a note.
Each note had a tape.
Back a tape. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the sounds are pretty realistic, but you're also quite limited to what you could do with it.
But they were like,
if you listen to any of the Radiohead kind of stuff, they use the Mellotron a lot on some of their older stuff.
Exactly, and like the Moody Blues, all those string sounds on those kind of records, and I mean it's all over Genesis and all that, all the progressive stuff. So
crazy,
epic keyboard from the past, and so that's really cool. So there you are in the
There's
spoons.
There's a comment.
And along comes Arias and Symphonies.
Yep.
And the single Arias and Symphonies is like one of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah.
Because of the keyboard epic lines in it.
Totally.
You know, the whole song, I mean, it's just great. Tell us about it.
Well,
Everything.
I think that the way we sort of arranged our music, it was sort of unconscious, but it just sort of worked out that way, probably with the limitations of the instruments. We were all playing individual lines. Gord, for a bunch of the songs on the Arias album, he and Sandy would play in unison, like octave kind of things, you know, and just sort of like riffy things. And then I would play a single line or like a couple of harmonies together. And it was sort of like the simplicity of each of us. It turned out to be almost like a Bach, like a fugue or something,
Really
because
is.
it sounds like there's more really going on than there is.
Huh.
But then certainly in the studio, I would overdub a bunch of different sounds playing the parts, especially for a song like Arias. I had my monophonic SH2000 and then the Jupiter as well, playing the lines. And then on the choruses and in a couple of sections, I overdubbed the acoustic piano on top of it as well. So
Cool.
yeah, and it was fun because our producer loved it too. Like it was a time when there were more lush sounds happening, and we were listening to like Japan and Roxy music and that kind of stuff. And our producer had produced both of those bands, so he was all keen on like just sort of layering it up, you know. So he kind of let me go crazy, and if I had an idea for another layer, he'd do it. Then he just bury it all in the mix and sort of mix it all together.
So were you guys playing that live previous to that? Did because something like that seems like it needs to take a while to bake, you know? Or did you do that in the studio? Did you bake it in the studio, or was it already like preconceived before you got to the studio?
It was a little bit preconceived before we got to the studio. I mean, we rehearsed enough as a 4-piece to know the foundations of the songs, but there were only a few of the songs that we had actually played live up to that point. So we spent a lot of time in our rehearsal studio. It was a tiny little room in Burlington. Gord's dad had a house that he was using as an office sort of, and there was a tiny room in the upstairs. It was a small bedroom that we would rehearse in, like face to face, you know. Derek would have to go in first to get behind his drum kit, and then Sandy would go into her amp, and then I'd have to go into my keyboard, and then Gord would be practically in the doorway. It was ridiculous. But we would work out stuff in this little room, and there were some songs that we would go to a small 16-track studio and do some demos as well. But when it came to doing the Arias album, we had already done the first album, and we'd done enough shows that I think we felt confident enough that we could go into the studio and have a pretty basic foundation and then just sort of go from there. So I sort of knew for myself, I had dreams in my head of like, well, I'm going to just play this now, but when we're in the studio, I'm going to add these things and I'm going to do this stuff, you know? So so the first album was my first time in a studio, but I had spent time at home when I was even younger than that with a reel-to-reel sort of just practicing overdubs and doing that kind of stuff too.
Okay.
So cool. Wow.
So when you actually got the mix home and you're listening to it with headphones and your eyes are closed, are you thinking, holy shit, this is awesome? Or, oh man, I wish I could have done this?
A little bit of both. The first time I heard some of the mixes, we were doing some live dates. In fact, we'd gone out to Ottawa to do it, like in the, you know, in the fall season when it becomes like the colleges and universities are all going back, and those like the homecoming weeks, we would always get booked good gigs in September. So I remember just a little bit before that, we had just gotten the mixes from John Punter. He had done them in England and then sent them to us, and it was still so new to us that I remember I would listen to them on my Walkman and still think, God, I can't believe it's us. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
Because we'd go in the studio and lay it all down and then just sort of leave it to him. And so it was a little bit magical, but there were also always times I would listen and go, oh, I would do that differently if I could. But, you know, you just let that go. So
that's always the case.
Yeah.
Always.
We always do that to ourselves.
Yep. Always.
Yeah,
So
totally.
when you worked with like someone like Daniel Lanois, this is like, we're talking like before Daniel Lanois was Daniel Lanois, I assume, before this, like all that kind of stuff. Was there like any hint of the things that he would be doing later on, like in his process? I'm curious to know what
Well, it's weirder to look back now, knowing who he is and what he's done. But if I just think of how he contributed to the sound of the record, he probably did what he's always done since then, because he was the engineer. It was his studio, right? It was Grand Avenue in Hamilton, and he and his brother ran the studio, so he was like the house engineer. Yeah. So of course now in hindsight, it sounds cool to go, yeah, man, we worked with Daniel Lanois, but he was Daniel Lanois for us. He was our engineer and he was fantastic, but he definitely had good input with our producer in terms of treating the sounds and adding effects and processing the sounds that we were using and stuff. So I would guess that those were the early stages of him being who he's always been as a collaborator.
It's a very interesting story because I listened to him on something recently, and even the way he kind of broke out of just being a guy from Hamilton into like Brian Eno finding some weird like choir recordings or something and deciding I want to work with that guy. It's like, wow, what are the chances of that? But no, I think it's really interesting to see because you kind of forget that guys like Danny Lanois was just some guy in that studio in Hamilton, Ontario. But but you guys worked with a lot of cool people, like you said, like producer wise. But did you guys actually went to London and recorded as well? Didn't you?
Gord and Sandy went to do the vocals. So we did all the bed tracks and all the overdubs in Toronto at Sounds Interchange. And then Gord and Sandy went for like a week to do the vocals, to cover the vocals.
I see. That makes sense.
I didn't get to go. I wished I had, but they were at Air Studios for like a week.
Right.
Gord was telling his story about how him and Sandy broke up around the time that you shot one of your videos, and I just wondered what the dynamic was.
Romantic Traffic, I think it was.
It was Romantic Traffic.
Because in your head, you might be thinking, oh, what's going to happen to the band, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they were a couple as long as I knew them. From the time that I joined the band, they had already been together as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was weird. I mean, it's a personality thing for them, I guess, right? But I remember the splitting up. It was definitely awkward at times, but we had stuff booked and we had gigs, and I think whatever they were able to do as far as working it out, they did it, and continues to this day, which is fantastic. So
it's a full on Fleetwood Mac situation.
It really is, and really, and the dynamic of our band was always sort of like that, anyways, because Gord and Sandy were the vocalists. Yeah. And Derek and I, so it wasn't like a real split, like we weren't getting along or anything, but always was Gordon, Sandy, and Rob and Derek. That was sort of ended up being the dynamic of the band, you know. So
it worked though. It really worked. Yeah.
Did you ever do any singing as well on the stuff, or
not with the Spoons? No. I did with Honeymoon Suite. With the Spoons, I remember and it's not really a regret, but there was at one point where we were recording with Nile Rodgers, and he at some point Gord was doing an overdub, and we were in the control room, and he's like, "You should sing this," and I was way too afraid to do it. So so after I left the band, I started taking singing lessons for a little while, and I sort of started realizing it would be a good thing because my dad's a great singer, and when it came to joining Honeymoon Suite for my audition, I was like, totally, I'm going to sing. So you guys were talking to Joey last week, and his story of auditioning, it was the same thing, right? Like that's the exact same feeling that I had with Honeymoon Suite. Like I wasn't going to say no to anything. Can you sing? Yep. Do you have this keyboard? Yep. I figured I don't want to reduce my chances. So, you know.
That's great.
Yeah. Producer-wise.
So you don't want to, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so you mentioned Nile Rodgers and course Daniel Lanois, but Ted Templeman did that Honeymoon Suite stuff. That's pretty good pedigree of producers.
That's a hell of a pedigree. Yeah,
I know. Ted was crazy too. Yeah, and actually our engineer who worked with Ted, Jeff Hendrickson, he was amazing as well. I mean, really, Racing After Midnight, it's credited as co-produced between Ted and Jeff Hendrickson, and Jeff has an amazing career as well. Like, I mean, he produced Bullet Boys with Ted as well. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at his list of stuff that he's done, and he goes way back to New York working with Nile Rodgers as well, which I thought, it's weird. I don't think I knew that back in the day when I was working with Jeff and Ted, to think that we had that other connection from several years before that as well. So
where did you record with Ted?
One-on-one studios in North Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
Which was where Metallica recorded their Black album as well.
I know it well.
Do you know well?
Too much. Well, we haven't recorded in that studio, but we've certainly been in that neighborhood 1,000 times because our rehearsal places are. Yeah, I think it's still there.
I think it is. I think it's renamed now, but it was a fantastic room. Like, I mean, and that's where we recorded Lethal Weapon there as well. That was the first song we did there.
That's right.
That was big for that movie, right?
Yeah, and that was sort of our test with Ted because they asked us about recording the song, and so we flew to LA and we met with Ted, and he had booked the studio. So then once we decided that this is cool working with Ted, so then we decided we'd come back and do the whole album with him. But the studio, it was an amazing studio to work in.
Hey, Corey, go back to the photo.
Okay.
So I want to know we talked to Joe about the audition. I want to know about your audition to join Honeymoon Suite. And was it like, well, he also has really great hair.
Really great hair.
I had Well, it was fortunate that like after I left the Spoons, it was about 9 months until I got the call to audition for Honeymoon Suite.
And what
in
are
that
you
time,
like? You're like 20 here.
I was 20 when I left the Spoons.
God.
Yeah, I left the Spoons
Jeez.
and I was 20. Again, I sort of had like a bit of a midlife crisis because I was like, I'd been in the band for 5 years and I thought, God, what am I doing? I've been in this band for so long. I feel like I need to do something else. So I left the band, and then I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I was a little bit like frustrated. I was started writing some songs on my own, and I was taking singing lessons and doing some demos on my own, and it got to be like a little bit of a concern for myself. Like I thought, well, I'm not doing anything now. Like I don't really know exactly what the next step will be. And towards the end of the summer, it was like around this time, probably in like 35 years ago, it was in 86, I got the call from their tour manager to ask if I would want to come and audition for the band. And they knew of me from the Spoons, and I knew one of their co-managers who worked with Honeymoon Suite's management company. He was helping me sort of try to like get kickstarted like a solo career kind of a thing. So it's possible he mentioned me to them as well. So the tour manager called and said, okay, we're going to have auditions next weekend, and if you're interested, come on out. And I was like, of course. So he rattled off a list of like 13 songs because they were in the midst of the Big Prize tour at that point.
Right.
And I think they'd been on the Legs of the Heart tour and the ZZ Top tour, and they were with 38 Special as well. And then Ray just like up and left the band.
That's right.
So he threw them for a bit of a loop, but they wanted to sort of get back in motion as quickly as they could. So I got the call, and tour manager listed off 13 songs. I wrote them all down. I was like, okay, I'm going to get these records. I already sort of knew, of course, I knew all the songs on the radio at that point. And I loved all the singles I loved. I mean, knowing them all. But then I got the Big Prize, and I went through all the songs that he listed. And he said, like, pick 4 songs. And then in my, like, a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, I'm going to just learn all the songs. Because I don't want to get thrown. Like, it's probably my nervous, the nervous part of me that doesn't want to get thrown. If I learn 4 songs and they call it another one, I don't want to like blow the audition, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to just learn all the songs. So I made a little book. I took a little notebook and I made charts, like really basic charts, and I listened to Ray's parts and wrote down little reminders for myself. And then I had my keyboards in my bedroom in my parents' basement, and I just programmed them all. So like I had a pretty good keyboard setup at the time too. So it's sort of like I was fortunately ready to do the thing as well with them.
Crazy.
So I was able to pretty much recreate the sounds as well as I could hear them. So I loaded up all my gear in my parents' station wagon and drove out to Mississauga and did the audition, and it went really well. And I think it was at the audition that they asked me if I sang as well. And I think I just said yes. And they just pulled the mic up, and I just kind of went for it, even though I don't really know exactly what I was singing at that point. But they thought it was fine. So then like a couple of days later, I think they called back and said, okay, well, if you want to do it, you got the gig. And PS, we have a gig in 4 more days. So I think that's maybe why they liked choosing me for the gig, because I knew all the songs. Yeah. And I was and my hair was really long and really blonde at the time. Like it looked like it was like I'd been growing it out for like the year before that. So it sort of fit in the band as well. I didn't have like a Spoons do, you know?
Right.
So
Marlene says here, well, Rob, you should have been a member of Duran Duran. There you go.
Well,
Johnny Langdon is asking if you got to spend any time with Michael Kamen.
I never did. No, he wrote Lethal Weapon, and we got a demo. Our management got a demo of the song, and that's as far as it went. Yeah, I would have loved to have met him, but yeah, we just had a demo. Might have even been him. I don't know if it would have been him singing the demo, but yeah, that was it. So
I'd be very curious to hear that demo, but yeah, because your guys' version crushes.
It's pretty cool. The demo was a little bit different, and yeah, like I might have it on a tape somewhere. Like I feel like I have a box somewhere where it's probably sitting around.
That's great.
But so my first gig with Honeymoon Suite was opening for Journey in Kansas City.
Wow,
amazing!
Like, they were like, "Boom, we're right back into it." So it's like jumping on a moving train, right?
I bet.
The first 3 months of my time with the band was like a nonstop whirlwind. Like it was so fun, and I was ready for it because I'd had my time with the Spoons up until just 9 months previous. So I felt like this is what I'm ready to do. This is like the next step. So we opened for Journey. We did a couple shows. We went to Florida and did some shows with Starship, and then we went to Tokyo to play in Tokyo for this thing called the World Popular Song Festival, which was like a worldwide, almost like a Eurovision kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Yamaha sponsored this thing. We played at the Budokan, and
cool.
We were representing Canada, and it was actually a song that Ray Coburn wrote, which was funny because him not in the band,
Right.
but it was still submitted to this festival. So then we were in Tokyo.
What's your band called?
Honeymoon Suite.
Oh, it's Honeymoon Suite.
This was
Okay,
Honeymoon Suite.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I did the same thing with my band
Did you?
at the Budokan.
Oh, no way.
And it was the same
The
kind of
weird
thing.
thing
We were
about it
representing
was-
Canada.
The weird thing about it
My
was
band
his
was the
band was called.
Explorers. Yeah.
His band was called Honeymoon Suite 2. That was
That's right.
My band's called Honeymoon Suite as well.
Amazing.
No, so yeah, that's really. So what year was that?
This
around?
was 86.
86. Okay, it was 92. So they must have been doing it like years before
Yeah,
that.
no, when we did it, it had already been an ongoing thing as well.
There you
And
go.
it was a big thing
Okay.
for Yamaha and for Yamaha in Tokyo to present this big thing at the Budokan.
It sounds like almost like a Japanese Eurovision. Kind of thing.
Totally was that kind of thing.
It really was, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So then we came
Okay.
back from Tokyo, and then it was the Juno Awards, and we played Bad Attitude on the Junos.
Right,
We
right.
faked it, but it looked good. And then we
That's all
won
that
a
matters.
Juno, and then we won the Juno for Group of the Year, and I felt so guilty walking up with the band because I was like, I've only been in the band for like 3 months, and Johnny was like, "You're in the band now, so come and get the Juno."
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. That's the way. So do you have that at home?
And here it is.
There it is. Up.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Can't beat that. That's great.
No, that's right. And then we then continued like a Canadian tour that fall. We went out to Halifax. We went out to, I think it was mostly an East Coast tour, and
Crazy.
Luba was opening for us, and possibly Haywire didn't do those shows. Don't remember who else, but we did
Crazy.
like a live concert for Much Music from Halifax as well. So it was like this whirlwind. And then the next year we did Lethal Weapon, and we went to LA to record Racing After Midnight. And then the next, so like time
Great
flies.
record.
Yeah, thank you. Time flies
Now-
by when you're kind of booked and doing this stuff,
Now that's the trip where Johnny wiped out and messed himself up, right? In LA. What did he do again? Like at the airport or something like that? He fell or something?
He got hit by a bus.
That's what it
Oh my
was.
God.
Oh my God. Yeah.
He was walking across the crosswalk, and there was a bus. I think the bus was parked and just started going. And I think the guy didn't see Johnny or whatever. Johnny was going to pick up his girlfriend at the
Oh
airport.
my God. Yeah.
Broke his leg, and then he had to fly home. But we had already recorded most of the album in LA, and we had been coming back. Hello, dog.
Is that Butters?
She just shows up. She wanted to
Hello.
say hi.
Hi. We had been doing like overdubs, and Johnny was cutting vocals, and we were doing extra keyboard overdubs and stuff. So we were going back for like shorter periods of time, but that sort of threw it all into a bit of commotion for a bit, because then he had to take care of his leg, and then we came back to do some more. So when we were working with Michael Macdonald, I have pictures of Johnny with Michael like in the vocal booth, Johnny with his crutches standing beside Michael Macdonald.
What a
pretty awesome.
drag.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So how many years?
Amazing.
So you were only there a few years, really, when you do the math.
Yes, it
That's
was
a lot of activity for.
It really was a whirlwind, Like I
Yeah.
joined the band, it was September of '86, and the last gigs that I did with the band were getting into like 1989. So
Wow.
that was 88 was like our year on the road, like crisscrossing Canada, and we did shows with Haywire did shows with us, and Frozen Ghosts were opening as well,
Right.
and a lot of that kind of stuff. And then towards the end of that year was when it's sort of like when I left the Spoons, like I was started thinking, God, maybe there's something else I want to do, and I don't really know what it is. And
I'm
then
curious to know what what that was. I mean, like how you sort of like found what you were looking for, like the U2 song. See,
still haven't found what I'm looking for. Even more like the YouTube song.
Daniel Lanois, full circle.
That's right. Well, the light bulb went off in my head when I saw ads for Phantom of the Opera coming to Toronto.
Right.
And
Now, is this the Paul Stanley version, or is this much earlier than that?
Oh no, it was he came in at the end of the run.
So you worked with Paul, like you actually did that run? That's
He did.
hilarious.
I didn't do the whole run, but I came in a couple
Right.
times, and I got to meet him backstage and like play for him and stuff.
A friend of mine was just telling me a story the other day. I'm sorry to cut you off, but he's like, he was saying how like, oh, I know, it was that they were at the show. Paul Stanley's supposed to be the Phantom.
Yeah.
And then as everybody's sitting there, his announcement, like, unfortunately tonight, the part of the Phantom will be played by some other guy.
Yes.
And apparently, without even realizing this, my friend's just sitting there, and all these people stood up in Kiss makeup and walked out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He never saw any of them. They never never noticed them there until they actually got up and walked out in like en masse in
Totally.
Kiss makeup. And I was like,
Yep.
oh my God, that's funny, dude.
Yeah, it's like an apocryphal Phantom Kiss story now, because the fans would show up. People who would never go to see a Broadway musical, it's like, well, Paul Stanley's doing it. We got to go check it out.
Gordy Johnson from Big Sugar went in Ace Frehley makeup. He was proud to tell me.
No way. That's amazing.
Well, I guess it's the only way to go. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And Paul sounded fantastic too, because I mean, he just sounded like Paul. And I mean, there's some really good high notes in Phantom as well. Like when you sing the song Music of the Night, and it was weird to hear Paul Stanley singing the same thing, but because it's like when a guy has such a distinctive voice, it's like at one point I saw a touring production of Jesus Christ Superstar and
with
Dennis
Sebastian?
with Dennis DeYoung.
Right, yeah. As Pilot.
As Pilot. Oh, wow. When he came out and sang that song, it was just the weirdest thing, because I knew the song.
That'd be so cool.
And I knew his voice like the back of my hand, and the combination was just so exciting to hear.
So crazy.
Yeah.
So how long did
Paul go?
Go ahead.
Did Paul go?
Yeah.
The music of the come on, Toronto.
yeah. All right, people. Yeah.
Got a little surprise for you. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna turn the microphone over to Christine Daae.
Yeah. Well, the funniest thing about that, I believe he was still in the middle of like the Psycho Circus tour or something super crazy, where it was just like everything had to halt because Paul's going to go off to Toronto and be in this production of Phantom of the Opera.
When I came in just to play a few shows, because I had been doing a couple of other shows in Toronto at the same time, and somebody, the keyboard player, asked me to come in and sub for a couple of shows. And I was like, cool, it's going to be Paul Stanley. And two friends of mine were playing the leads in the show. So backstage during the show, I said to them, you got to introduce me to Paul after the show. You got to introduce me. So we hung around afterwards, and they took me into Paul's dressing room. And so I got to meet him, and he played me. I think at the time they were just recording a song for the Godzilla soundtrack, I think it was Godzilla. They had done an original song. And he's like, oh, I got to play this thing. We just finished it. So it was like me. It was 11-year-old me in my head sitting on a couch with Paul Stanley, like just, coming out of the shower from Phantom, showing me this new song. And I thought, if you only knew, Rob, like this is your life, right? It's bizarre.
So how long did you do Phantom for then? Like, and
I did it.
What's that process like before we get into that? What is that audition process like? Is that a whole, because for guys like me who basically have punk rocked their way through this entire thing, I can't imagine what that must be like. It's
weird subbing on a show, because when you're a sub, you basically, your first show is a show, right? And it's up to you to train and watch. So like you would go sit in the pit. So like when I got the call to do Phantom, the keyboard player said to me, here's a recording of the show, here's the music for the show, now go home and practice, and you can come in and sit with me in the pit and watch as many times as you want, and when you feel like you're ready, you can do a show. And so that's basically what it is. So like the pressure is on you, and I'm like, it's one of those moments in my life, like I will never forget that feeling. Like as much as you think of the feeling the first time you're on a stage in front of thousands of people, more nerve-wracking to me was being in the corner of the pit in front of the grand piano when all the lights go off, and I'm like, there's no turning back, Rob. Like, and my heart was pounding out of my chest more than anything else. And I thought, who do you think you're fooling? Like, you're not going to get away with this. And if you fuck up and make a mistake on this, there's an audience, there's a conductor who's going to, be really pissed off with you and with the musician that hired you. But I made it through, and, you sort of just persevere like that. But it's really, it becomes, it's like the more you do, the more confident you get in the process of subbing for a show. And then there are times when you audition as well. Like I played the show Miss Saigon in Toronto, and I had to audition for a music supervisor, and they sent me a piece of the music and I had to learn it. And it was like a big piano thing I had to do. So it's like subbing for anybody, I guess. Like people know you and they know who you are and what you do, and then they just figure you'd be a good fit. And sometimes you are, sometimes you're not.
That's true, because when a tour is in process, and if you are actually subbing for somebody when a tour is on, there really isn't a whole lot. I mean, it's uncommon for them to go, okay, we're going to book 3 days of rehearsal with you. Yeah, it's usually like you're just thrown into the lion's den. Like, here we go, and the intro tape is on, and boom, there we go. And you're either going to know the show or you're going to fall flat on your face.
Exactly, so. And
we've
all been there.
Here has done that. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and it's scary no matter what, but you sort of learn to thrive on that fear, I guess, in a way. Like you kind of have to, it's sink or swim 100%. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, totally.
But I think it's really, and that's how you kind of found your sort of link into that world, the Broadway, the live musical type world. That sort of must have led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
It really did. Yep.
Phantom was really, you to New York City. Yeah,
exactly. Phantom was the impetus for me to realize there was a whole other world of music that it's possible for me to maybe get into. And at that time when the transition was happening, actually, I want to ask you guys are you familiar with the Saskatoon music scene at all? Like
of course,
in the late, I produced an album for a band in 1989 called May Run.
I was just going to bring this up. May Run, the drummer in May Run. The drummer in May Run is from the same town as me. We came up together playing in bands together. So Glenn Nowosielski, the drummer for May Run, those guys had a lot of promise when you did that record and all that kind of stuff. Steve Chivolo was the singer, and he was a really talented songwriter. Yeah. And we were like, these guys are on their way, man. They've got the sound, they got the songs. I don't know what happened because it's the music industry, but you know. Yeah,
the guy. First time I ever saw Todd on stage was with Glenn.
No way.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I wondered, because somewhere it occurred to me last night that just knowing where you guys are from, I thought, oh God, I wonder if you know who May Run are. And apparently that CD is like a really rare thing. You know, it's going for money, but the whole album's on YouTube. I listened to it last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going to look for it too now.
I'll send you the link. It's pretty.
They had a single. I can't remember what it was called, but it was really
You're Not
strong.
the Only One.
Yeah, that's one of them for sure.
Might have been the one. Yeah. But they're not bad songs. Like, I mean, really, it was. I had left Honeymoon Suite, and it was at that point where I was just starting to get into the world of theater as well. And I had talked to the guys, Brian, I forget his name, Chris Hamill, the guitar player. And
Chris Hamill,
he had gotten in touch with me about producing them, and I thought, well, sure, that sounds like a cool gig. So I was like getting into the world of musical theater, but then I was doing this production, and I went out to Saskatoon, and it was this really beautiful studio in the middle of nowhere, and there was a house there.
Studio West.
Yeah,
it was out by Pike Lake where the Northern Pikes would record all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm dropping Saskatoon names here, everybody. Watch.
Got to do it. I love it. I couldn't remember the name, but I was staying in this house all by myself. Like the guys would all go back to their homes at the end of the days, and I was in this big old house all by myself. But then at the house, I had the music for the musical Cats because I had watched a keyboard player in Toronto doing Cats, and I was like sort of studying the music. And it was when I was producing May Run that I got this call to ask if I wanted to come and audition to play Cats, which was the first show I actually played at Massey Hall, which led to me doing Phantom in Toronto. So it was like these weird worlds colliding.
So isn't it kind of interesting though, like, you know, how those paths present themselves, and is it just as likely that you could have went down that producer lane and, you know, become that guy, and you know, May Run could have turned into a next gig, but the fact that you probably already had that Broadway thing rolling, it just sort of took over the momentum. Yeah,
it sort of did. And it wasn't that it was really rolling. It just happened to present itself in a different way because I didn't know how to pursue producing gigs or anything at that point either, because I wasn't really a producer. You know, I'm able to make contributions and be a collaborator in that way. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they asked me to do it, I thought, I could totally do that. So I played keyboards on the record and just, you know, worked on it like that with them.
It was great. I honestly, like, back then, and I remember us being like, no way, Rob from the
really?
And
yeah.
We were like, that's a big deal, dude. That's like, you know, because we're literally kids from Saskatoon, like, you know, falling ass backwards into a career.
Yeah, sure.
But no, I think, but it really is interesting to me that you can kind of spin that into, you know, like you say, suddenly Cats is on your plate, Andrew Lloyd Webber and shit. It's like, what?
Right.
Like,
it's
crazy,
weird.
Man.
But then, like you said, it does sort of, it leads to another thing because the scene was sort of new in Toronto at the time. I started to be able to find people who were like, when there was another show coming along, somebody would say, well, we can call Rob to do this. Like, I've got a call to sub and play for a touring production of a show that was coming from New York, another Andrew Lloyd Webber show. And then a show came from London that I played for a few weeks as it was in Toronto. And then I ended up going on tour with Phantom of the Opera for a couple of years. The first Canadian tour happened, and I went out to Vancouver with the show for like 6 months, and then did Montreal for 4 months, and did Calgary as well. We played at what's the theater that's in Calgary?
Jubilee.
That's the Jubilee.
Jubilee. They're both exactly the same.
Yeah, they're exactly the same. Because we used to
surreal.
Yeah, we used to play there with the Spoons as well.
You go. We did it just with Slash not that long. We played in Edmonton, and then we went to Calgary, and I was like, "This is exactly the same building." And like
isn't that weird?
It's so weird, but
it's not unlike the Center of the Arts and the Centennial Auditorium in Saskatchewan. They're basically kind of the same.
Right. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
So let's talk about the really awesome things that you've experienced then being in New York, because you did take part in Mamma Mia, and you got to be with was it Bjorn and Benny, or just one or the other? Or?
I was actually with them. Well, I was with them in Toronto first.
Really?
Yeah, I started with them in Toronto in 2000. So that's when we started Mamma Mia, and that was another thing. I got a call out of the blue. I was on tour with Cats in the U.S. It was like a bus and truck, and like 2 nights, 3 nights in a town, and you're on the road. So it was really like a high school band tour in a way, but it was great fun to do and see lots of America like that. But I got a call out of the blue from this music director saying, I'm going to be coming to Toronto in the spring with this new musical that's in London right now, and it's all the music of ABBA. And I need a rock and roll assistant music director, and you were recommended to me. So if you're into it, let's have a meeting. And at first I was like, I'm not a music director and I'm not a conductor. I would love to play keyboards on the show, but I said, let's meet anyway. So I met him in New York, and this was early 2000. And he's like, come on, you can do it. I'll show you what to do. The conducting, it's not a lot of conducting. It's ABBA.
To your credit, a lot of times the director is a keyboardist. Correct?
Yeah. Well, yes.
So even though you were saying you weren't, you probably were, selling yourself short. But
that's why, because at that point it was starting to become more common for keyboard players to be music directors for Broadway shows as well. And Mamma Mia was one where Benny and Bjorn were very specific about wanting the band to be able to be seen. Like in Toronto, they made sure the front of the proscenium had an opening so you could see the band in the pit as well. And my keyboard was right in the front row. Like they took out seats in the front row to put my piano right there as well.
Cool.
So I started with the show in Toronto, and Benny and Bjorn were there a lot. Bjorn was there a lot, like from the beginning of rehearsals, and Benny showed up a few weeks into it because he didn't really have a lot of involvement when the show began in London. So we were only the second production in the world at that point, and they were kind of getting excited because they thought, well, maybe this thing's going to catch on, like maybe it's going to become a thing, and they still honestly didn't really know at that point. So it was exciting for us. Because we were all huge ABBA fans. I mean, it's our generation,
Totally.
And
that's a slam dunk of slam dunks. If you would have pitched that to me back then, I'd have been like, this is a no-brainer, dude. These songs, every one of these songs is a winner. This can't lose. You know what I'm saying?
And as ABBA says, the winner takes it all.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Leave on a high note. There you go.
But the funny
Every
thing
ABBA tune is like 3 hit songs.
Everyone is. You're right.
No kidding.
Totally. Yeah, totally. But Benny and Bjorn were genuinely like still a little nervous. Like they felt like, are people going to really care about our songs after 25 years? Like they were these kind of honest, down to earth kind of just guys who happen to be superstars, but maybe it's their Swedish upbringing that they're a little more low key about everything. So it was super cool.
Yeah.
To have them with
normally, it's not part of their culture to be like, check me out. Like, yeah, we got this. It's kind of more like, humble and cool. And I get that. But it is a slam dunk, and clearly it's a slam dunk. Do you think Toronto acts as sort of like a sort of I don't want to. What's the right word? It kind of feels like to me like anything that's sort of like in New York, it either ends up going to Toronto or it's kind of getting worked up in Toronto, and then it goes to Broadway. Like that was
people
totally don't really understand. People don't really understand the theater district in Toronto is huge. Like it's a whole thing down there. Like
it was for a time in the 80s into the 90s, but then it sort of slowed down a bit, and then it was really more just touring productions coming through. But I think because the producers of Mamma Mia, they knew what Toronto was like. They knew that I always feel like we as Canadians were somewhere between the Brits and the Americans, right? Like we get the best of both worlds.
Sure, yeah.
I was laughing when you guys did your interview with Brian from Chilliwack.
Yeah.
It's like,
of course, yeah.
Chilliwack. And
Chilliwack,
and of course it's the nature of us as Canadians that we see the best and the worst of people on both sides of it all. So I felt like we got to be like the guinea pigs in Toronto, helping to make like an international version of Mamma Mia. The director let our actors sort of rejig the dialogue so that it would sound more natural for North American audiences, and because then I was helping out. And I was like so into it. I was listening to the records and like helping the orchestrator, like, you're missing this keyboard part and this note's wrong. And I think he was starting to get a little pissed off sometimes because I was like, I was totally nerding out because I thought finally, after all these years of what I'd love to do was to have no responsibilities playing in a pit like Phantom and Miss Saigon and all that stuff. Here's a show where I bring some knowledge from another part of my life as recording studio knowledge. To a live show. So it was like a really neat marriage of those worlds for me. So then when the show was coming to New York a year later, they asked me to come down to be the assistant music director. I was like, sure, I'd love to come to New York with a job.
So that's cool. What year is that? Your first like job in New York?
It was August 2001.
Wow, dude. So you just came straight after 9/11.
Before 9/11, yeah.
Before 9/11, yeah, that's even crazier, yeah.
Yeah, we were here for about a month at that point. Yeah, we were. I mean, of course, we just had the 20th anniversary. We were just talking about it, because we were in rehearsals at that point, and it was a weird time because the day September 12th, we all got together in the rehearsal room, and we were like, why does anybody do anything anymore? Like, it threw everybody into turmoil, and we sort of realized, well, our show is going to be necessary,
of course,
for people, right? So like bring them back, and we ended up being.
How long after did it open?
We opened in October, so October 18th of 2001. So we were really the first new show to open. So it was like a celebration to say, "Fuck that shit! Like, come back." Life has to go on.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, it was kind of like, I remember all of it. I remember when SNL finally came back on the air. It was kind of like, what do we do? Like, can we really do any of this? And it's sort of like, it's almost like now what we're experiencing, where audiences are sort of like very rapturously just taking in this kind of ability to be able to come see shows after going through something traumatic like 9/11 or COVID or whatever it is. It's like, it's been really raw as this 9/11 went by as a 20th anniversary. But the fact that you were there, where were you when it occurred? Where were you?
Well, we were rehearsing. We were downtown. I was rehearsing downtown.
Wow.
We were in a rehearsal studio down near Union Square. So I was getting ready in the morning for our 10 o'clock rehearsal, and I took the subway down. And at that point, when I left, the news was that I was in the shop. They said a small plane has hit the World Trade Center. We don't have any other details at that point. So I didn't own a TV at the time either. So I didn't see anything until like a year later. I didn't watch anything. I didn't want to know. Like, so being there on the day was like a lot of misinformation happening, and nobody really knew. I saw the towers with my own eyes down the avenue, because I came up at Union Square and it was right there, and it was like 9:45, and I was like, well, I got to go to rehearsal. I don't know what that's all about, but I'm sure I'm going to hear about it. Like, it was weird how you feel like life is going on, but you'd want to stop, but you can't just stop. So we were in the rehearsal room. There was only a few of us because subway stopped running and stuff. And after a couple hours, we had the radio blaring in there, and our stage manager was like, who are we kidding? Like, we're not going to rehearse today, so let's just leave. So then I had to walk uptown. I was living way uptown. Oh, wow. And the whole thing was just bizarre. Yeah,
it was the initial reports. I had just, I've been through this whole, rabbit hole recently. They thought is a Cessna flew into the, like it was a lot of confusion initially, because there's no way you would have wrapped your head around that is what happened. But
no,
but I've talked to people like yourself who, objectively just happened to be there or whatever, not necessarily witnessing it like in real time. But the fact that you're in the city and the aftermath of what that city, the ghost town that it kind of became for a brief bit there before,
and it wasn't a ghost, but the weird thing is that it wasn't a ghost town for us. Like, that's why I always feel like, since I moved there a month before, I feel like I became a real New Yorker on that day, because it felt personal to me. Like, I was like, even though we don't know all the details of all this, it's just all this focus now on my city. Like, all of a sudden I felt like this is my hometown. Like, I felt like a part of it, maybe because we were also preparing this new show that we were super proud of unleashing on the city and the world as well. It was very weird.
Oh, Rob, man, did you get, like, trip. Was it an O1 work visa to be in New York? And
I think it was a P1. I think I had a P1.
Were you taking the jobs away from hardworking Americans? Is what he's trying to say.
I don't know, but I did have I think it was a P1 visa that I got initially, which kept getting renewed.
That's what I had.
Yeah, and they kept saying this. So the company managers for the producers, they were very nice for me. They were very understanding, because the producers, like the British people, liked having me as a part of the show. Like, I was like, there were 3 of us Canadians in the show, and we were really? Like, 3 of the actors actually on stage, and me in the pit. So we were the ones that they brought to sort of give the show some continuity already. But they would renew my work visa every year, and they kept saying to me, "Why don't you just get your green card?" Like, and I kept putting it off, and it was so easy for me to have them take care of it every year that I got real lazy about it. So finally, I met my wife, and we got married, and I've got a green card. So
there you go.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So she's from New York?
Yeah, she's from LA, actually.
Oh, is she really?
Well, LA. Okay.
Well, actually, she'll say.
So do you get out this way very often?
Yeah, she's from Orange County, actually. So
there you go.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's a very specific difference. It's a specific difference to anybody from Orange County.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's great.
Pretty awesome.
So how?
Let's talk about how you got hooked up with Rami Malek to
I'd love to hear
teach him how to play. What was that about?
I'm a massive nerd for Mr. Robot. So before he was ever in that, I was like already way invested. Friends of ours would go to like locations within the city to see, different parts of Mr. Robot being filmed. And then when he was cast as Freddy, I was like, slam dunk. That guy is, first of all, I think he's a major actor. There he is.
Yeah, there he is.
There you go. Wow.
I made sure I got a selfie
That's
when we did it,
cool.
because I'm like, this is kind of a cool thing I'm doing. I'm gonna want to be able to like share the news about it. And then I had to wait for like a year until the film came out, because I thought, well, there's probably like a non-disclosure thing that I'm gonna have to shut up about it. But the day of the release, I saw other people writing about that they'd worked on it. I thought, okay, now I can spread the news.
Did you take a hard look at the way Freddie plays keys? I always think it's interesting because he has this kind of weird way of like, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there are times where I watch Freddie play piano and he's playing very, like, you know, like rather than this, he's kind of got his hands hanging.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was like, it's kind of like, I don't know how trained Freddie was, because he played some wonderful parts, but I don't know if there was a certain amount of like punk rock going in the way he played.
I think, yeah, totally. I think he's a rockin' piano player in terms of his the way he just digs into stuff. But then like the way he plays very gently, like on the ballads and stuff as well, right? He's got such a, I mean, it's him as a songwriter as well. And I feel like he's got that, it's the same dynamic for him was his vocal style as well, right? He went from the
100%.
softest to the strongest, and there's nobody who could do that one thing the way he did. So, I mean, I learned to play piano basically from Freddie when I was 10 or 11. I mean, I was listening to those records, and I had all the sheet music when I was a kid, and I mean, really, it was a lightning bulb that went off in my head when I was like 11, learning to play one of their songs, and I had the sheet music, and I was listening to the record, and I thought, wait a minute, he's not playing exactly what's on the page. He's just playing the chords. And it was that song, remember Good Old Fashioned Loverboy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
And the sheet music would give the melody for the piano to play as well and stuff.
Yeah.
And I listened and I thought, wait a minute, he's just playing the chords. So I spent my whole time as a kid listening to him and Elton John, and just like that was my total inspiration. So when I got to meet with Rami, I was the first person he met with in like the music department, I think, in that way, as far as trying to help him get some sort of a sense of what to do with a piano. I mean,
how did that connection come up? Like,
it came up from a friend of mine in London who knew the music supervisor for the film. It was one of the people connected with Mamma Mia. They wanted the film people wanted a recommendation for somebody in New York because he was still filming Mr. Robot. So my friend in London.
Like, call Preuss, he's a rock and roll guy. Is that what,
totally. Yeah, and of course he knew how obsessed I was with Queen my whole life long as well. So he's like, so when I got the call, like, I'm born to do this, of course. Like, holy shit!
And does Rami the actor just come over to your house? Where does this happen?
No, we booked a rehearsal studio. So he was filming downtown in like the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and I got in touch with his agent. And
he was doing Mr. Robot, probably. See,
yeah, he was doing Mr. Robot, and
exactly.
They said just book a rehearsal room. So I like found a studio down sort of in that area, and I gave them the information. And I was like, okay, we'll meet at 4:00. And he showed up in this little room, and I made sure there was a piano, like electric keyboard.
Yeah, does Rami have any?
That's what I was just going to ask.
I was just going to ask that. Thank you, Bravo Bree.
Thank you. Bravo Bree. He couldn't touch a note. His hands were like,
oh wow.
His hands, there was like nothing going on. And I said, Rami, you're gonna have to make this look like Freddie, because he's a really good piano player.
So it is his hands in the movie, just to like clarify.
Yeah. Yes. I think because when I finally saw the film and I saw the credits and I saw my name with like 5 other people, we were all called piano coaches. Cool. So I think there were always people on the set to watch him, and the person's only job is to make sure his hands are in the right place on the piano and looks like it's doing the right thing. And so the first thing that I showed him, which I said, this is going to definitely be in the film, and it's very important, is you got to get Freddie's crossover in Bohemian Rhapsody, because you know how he goes.
Yeah, he always does it. 100%.
So
like I see people play that song all the time, and they play it like a real piano. I don't know, like a schooly guy, but Freddie always went ding 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 ding.
But
I think for dramatic effect too.
Totally for like Mr. Showmanship, he's like Liberace, right? But the funny thing is, have you watched Rick Beato's breakdown of Bohemian Rhapsody with Brian May?
Yeah.
That's
it's amazing.
Cool.
Even Rick Beato got it wrong when he was talking about Freddie's piano playing, though, because Freddie only played a single note on the top octave, and he did the other octave with his right hand. And I thought even Rick missed. Yeah, here it goes. It goes. I don't have my keyboard's too small, but I'll just play the right hand. He goes. So the left hand's only playing the single top note, and then your pinky's playing the other octave. So Rami basically in the rehearsal studio, he stood over me with his phone and like filmed me. I played parts of Bohemian Rhapsody, and I played parts of, I think, We Are the Champions a little bit, and they wanted him to learn a little bit of Happy Birthday, because there was a scene where he was singing Happy Birthday to his girlfriend or something.
Right.
And originally they thought that I was going to be able to show him how to actually play the piano. And I'm like, there's no way, because Freddie played his whole life long. So I think in the end they got to making sure it looks like he's playing, but he didn't really play.
Yeah.
There might've been a scene in a like a private moment where he played, but the live stuff, he just learned how to really make it look like he was.
It's like an
and
almost
it was much
famous.
better
all
job
those
than
guys,
Ralph
like-
Macchio in Crossroads.
In Almost Famous, they had Billy Crudup and those guys, and those guys got real, because those method actors get really crazy with it. But it's like you're not gonna be able to learn how to play like Clapton in like a couple of weeks for the filming. So it's kind of like you really just have to learn how to fake it. Totally. It's like not every actor learns how to become, I don't know, like a fighter jet or a pilot or anything else. It's like you're an actor. So
especially for Rami, because I mean, to play Freddie, it's more important that you've got the microphone technique and the movement. Because when I met with him, he had already been working with a movement coach as well, and he like learning how to get the physical elements as well. So I played a real small part in his journey, but I feel like I was sort of at the beginning of the journey, because what for me was like a sort of an honor was to just tell him, you're really lucky because musicians are obsessed with this band and with this guy, and I'm one of those musicians. So let me help you. Let me help you a little bit to become that guy.
It is an endless conversation for musicians, the pain of watching movies where they do stuff wrong. I can't imagine what it must be like being a doctor, because when you're like, what are you talking about? Like that, that's not how this works. But we watch musicians like any sort of, and you just go like, dude, that guitar's not plugged in, or like there's so many like little things where you're like, if you just
is the podium, and there's always there's like feedback. No,
every time someone goes to make a speech,
they step up to the mic and
that's right.
All right. It's always the same thing.
That's the Foley artist. They get in there and start adding shit.
Yeah, it's true.
Got to make it
hilarious.
But you're right.
You never did a Queen Broadway show.
No, I never did. I saw
Rock You.
Yeah, We Will Rock You. I saw it in London, and it was okay.
I never saw it.
It was okay.
I auditioned for it in Vegas.
Did you
audition for it? Wow. Well, there was, you know what?
Well, you know why you didn't get it? Because Rob Preuss didn't show you how to play that crossover with the piano.
That's right.
Well, it was for the drum gig, but interesting twist is, it's always who you know. Yeah. And there was a Winnipeg connection. One of the musical directors in Winnipeg, a guy that I had known that had worked with film and symphony and stuff in Winnipeg, was putting the band together in Vegas for We Will Rock You. True story. Cool. But at the time, I didn't know. And one of my dear friends, Eric Singer from the band Kiss, who had played with Brian May, had said, hey, they were going to move the We Will Rock You to Vegas, and they wanted to put a bunch of Vegas musicians into the show, right? Because if you're in Vegas, that does help. Yeah. If you're in New York, you should probably be living in New York if you're going to be in a Broadway show. Yeah. So I ended up auditioning with a whole bunch of people, and I would say that I didn't get the gig basically because they hired the entire Meatloaf band as a whole, and they all deserved it. They were all great, but at least I got
all those guys,
Yeah, they were all great. And John Maselli, the drummer, was great. But just to go to the experience of the audition was cool because it was all sheet music and all, a reading gig, and which I like doing. And, the drill of going through a Broadway show is a whole different thing than a band audition. It's a little different.
But it's neat. Like, that's the thing I like about the rock musical thing. When they want to do it right, it's cool that you get to sort of bridge those worlds. Like we did that with Mamma Mia too. Like they really wanted to keep it real. Like the guys in the band, we all had pretty good experience. Like with rock stuff, we tried to not go towards the guys who were more traditionally Broadway theatrical kind of players, especially when it came to the keyboard players and the drummers and the bass player as well. I mean, all those parts, because the ABBA parts were transcribed right off the records. So the bass parts were killer. Like it was so fun for the guys who would come in to play it as well. So
Todd and I have been to the ABBA museum too many times. Every time we're in Stockholm, it's our go-to.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible. It's the best. Yeah, it's the best.
Amazing. It's funny, in some of the displays there's a Hudson's Bay jacket, with the the Hudson's Bay logo, super Canadian. There's Toronto Maple Leaf jerseys, right, Todd?
Yeah.
Like in our wardrobe cases.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, because Benny used to play on stage with a Maple Leafs jersey, right?
That's right.
That's wow.
That's funny.
Yeah,
guys? Okay.
Go ahead.
Are you hockey fans? I'm going to just change the subject.
Of course.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my God.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'll brag about my nephew because he just got drafted by the New Jersey Devils.
No way. Wow.
Who's your nephew?
Amazing.
His name is Nico Dawes. He played for Canada World Juniors a couple years ago. And he's he's in Newark now training with the Devils. And
is he a Burlington guy?
Yes. I mean, he was born in Germany, but my sister's in Burlington and he grew up in Burlington. Cool. Yeah. But he played OHL, and he was like the #1 goalie in the OHL
so cool.
a couple years ago.
Wow.
But yeah,
Well, you'll get to see him because you're right across the water there.
I know exactly.
That's so cool. Yeah,
It just reminded me. You were talking about something sporty, and I thought, oh wait, got to do my nephew push.
He was talking about ABBA and
That's right.
a Leafs jersey.
A Leafs
it's not
jersey.
really. It was only kind of a little bit of hockey involved.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Benny
more about the
Benny
wardrobe.
from yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's right.
it'd be like talking about Mike Levine and then us suddenly going into the St. Louis Blues because he always wore that jersey. But yeah.
Exactly. Did you guys see
That's
the
right.
trailer for the Triumph film? Or
I
seen
did.
Triumph?
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it actually.
Me too.
Those guys that make those documentaries, the Banger Films, that
Yeah.
dude from his name escapes me. I'm sorry, but he's from Victoria.
Sam.
BC. Sam, I think his name, or
Yep.
Sam Dunn. Is that his name?
Thank you. Yep.
I think that's his name. Anyway, he does great work. Like he's done all those different well, the Rush one he did was amazing. So,
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Triumph one sounds really, really, really exciting. I want to check it out. We don't play any Triumph songs. It's been a really difficult discussion going, which Triumph song should we do? And we kind of spin in circles and then just kind of land on the other side of it and forget about it for a while. And then we come back to it. But
I loved, Triumph was one of those bands when I was a kid. I loved so much. I saw them play in Burlington at a high school when I was 12, I think.
Wow.
I mean, in the days when they still just had all the white lights around the stage, with the logo.
That was cool.
That's my favorite look. Yeah.
Man, it was unbelievable. Yeah. And it's one of those shows that just leaves a memory on you as a kid coming up and like wanting to play and seeing that kind of stuff. It's like I just thought they were so fantastic. So
amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
We still have to do a spoon
this
song
comes
in
from
set, too.
Andrew, our tour manager. It
That
says
goes
if Toque
without
ever gets a
saying.
keyboard player, it should totally be Rob.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I say.
get your hockey jersey.
You know what? Which team? I got a Winnipeg Jets jersey already.
Well, there you go. That's probably
We
your
have
best
our own
bet.
Toque jerseys. We'll just issue a
We'll
Toque
get
jersey to
We'll
you.
get you a Toque jersey. Exactly. Yeah. Hang
I'll be
on.
ready for it.
I'll pull one out for you while you're talking.
That would be pretty epic.
It's right here. It looks like this, Rob.
Ooh,
I don't know if you
that's
can see
beautiful.
that.
Got to pick your number. Pick your hockey number.
Pick your number.
Yep.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah, I watched that.
I don't know if Rob would be a good member for our band. He's way too positive.
And I can bring it down.
He's a can-do
No.
guy, not a
I'm
can-do.
kidding.
Yeah.
I can bring it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Everyone loves positivity, and especially in these times.
The clip of
I
you
feel like-
guys, but the clip of you guys playing in the restaurant, I like the little mini documentary that you posted.
Yeah.
And there were like programmed keyboards and like what's happening? You're playing with a click track, and it sounded fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's mostly Corey's headache to make that all happen.
Really?
Yeah, because those songs are bananas back then. Everybody had a keyboard player. That's just was the way it was.
Right, exactly. I know, it's funny. Like, I mean, I keep watching your episodes and the reminiscences and the love of Canadian music. I feel like it's just us, right? Like, I think that's why when I started watching it, I saw Gord with you guys, and then I saw Derry with you guys, and even like your guitar talk with Sean Kelly. I'm like, I'm in it, even though I'm not a guitar player. It's just our music, like you just grew up with all of this music in your life.
And you're probably like us, because I've been down here the same amount of time as you, and you don't hear the Canadianisms down here like we did growing up. So all that music that we cut our teeth on, you just don't hear it. So whenever us as Toque got together, before Toque was even a thing, we would just go down the rabbit hole of all the songs from the 80s and the 70s and and all the like we talk about Superstar snow skates and Crazy Carpets and
of course,
and the hilarious House of Frankenstein.
Exactly. Like and it's the music that we knew as Canadians that might have been huge to us and nobody else knows. Like didn't get airplay in America or anything. Like, I have a whole playlist of songs that I've grabbed off YouTube that I never had the records, but when I see old Canadian countdown charts and it's like the top 40, and there's certain songs that I loved so much that nobody else knows, but I don't care. It's like, that's my music. It's our music,
totally.
So
I know.
And you did something with Carol Pope as well, right?
I've done a lot of stuff with Carol Pope. I met her randomly in New York in 2002, early 2002. I was in a store one day and she was browsing in the store, and I said to my friend, "That's Carol Pope." And my friend didn't know who Carol Pope was because she's American. But I went up to Carol and I said, "Hey, you probably don't remember me. I used to play with the Spoons and with Honeymoon Suite, and I'm sure we met years ago." And it turned out we definitely had, and she knew the bands. She remembered the bands, and she had just moved to New York at the same time. And I think I gave her my phone number, and I said, if you ever want to hang out or something, just give me a call. And like a couple weeks later, she called me because she had just moved to New York as well, and I don't think she knew a lot of people. And so we just started like hanging out.
I didn't realize she was living in the city or had at any point.
She was at that time. She moves around from LA to New York to Toronto. She's always bounced. I think she might be here now again. But yeah, so over the years we've done some gigs together here. I played bass with her once. It was just me. She was singing and she had a guitar player here, and I played bass guitar and programmed a little drum machine with her. And then we did another gig where it was just me on piano. It was a Joni Mitchell tribute, actually. She sang a couple of Joni Mitchell songs, and I transcribed these things. And then we co-wrote a song that she did as a duet with Rufus Wainwright. It was a beautiful song. This was like 10 years ago. And I'm actually just last week, she's working on a musical, like a stage version of using Rough Trade songs.
Really?
And yeah, they did a workshop of it last week. A Zoom workshop. So the actors were mostly based in Toronto, I think. But I did a bunch of editing and mixing of the music for that as well. And I'm currently in the midst of mixing a new song for her as well.
Amazing.
Nice.
Wow. Tears are not enough.
Exactly. We can bridge the distance.
This has been one of my favorite episodes, Rob. We want to thank you for coming on.
I love you guys.
Really been a pleasure.
It's the weirdest thing to talk to you because I feel like I'm watching an episode of Toque Talk.
Well, you are, but you're on. It's so meta, dude. It's so meta. Well, the next time we get out to the city, we're gonna get pizza. We're gonna get coffee. We're gonna hang, and
and when I'm in LA, I'll see if you guys are around too. It would be super cool to see you there too.
Yeah. Do you get out? Does that happen on occasion?
It does. My wife still has family out there as well.
Sure.
And
in Orange County.
In Orange County, exactly. Yeah. And I have some friends in Pasadena and some different areas as well.
Great. Well, now you have friends in Vegas and in the Valley of friends.
Amazing.
Now, yeah.
Super cool. I would love it.
Going to be fun, man. Going to be fun. Was that, by the way, Fitz, was that Steve? Was that Steve Fitz?
Yeah. My dogs like to make appearances on Toque Talk.
It's a parade of Fitz dogs.
All 3 dogs got to be on today's episode.
Nice.
There's 4 dogs.
Big pet lovers, the Toque guys.
Do you have any pets, Rob?
Got a dog named Lily.
Where's Lily?
She's upstairs.
Where's
somewhere. Lily is like, do you remember the show Bewitched? Do you ever watch Bewitched?
Yeah.
Remember the nosy neighbor, Agnes Kravitz? Agnes Kravitz and Abner?
Yeah.
Our dog, she's always up at the window, like looking out. What's going on? She's like the nosy neighbor, checking out what's happening in the hood.
I love it.
Hey, real quick, I didn't know, where do you live in New York, Rob? Where's
I'm in Queens, in Queens.
You are?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. It's my place.
I'm jealous. Todd and I always say we'd love to live in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we should play Mr. Dress Up on the way out.
I'm going to blow it because I don't have enough keys, but it goes like,
Amazing.
Something like that. That's my mini keyboard.
Yeah, that was amazing. We got to go out on that. We can't come back from that. That's
no.
We love you, Rob. We're gonna
love you guys.
Yeah, we love you.
You can't get rid of us.
This was great, Rob.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you guys. Say hi to Shane for me too.
We'll do. We'll do. I don't. Yeah, we didn't even bring up that Shane isn't here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Shane couldn't be here, guys. He had appointments
he
couldn't change.
He's a busy guy.
But he sends his love as always. And we'll see everybody back next week. Same time, same bat place. Thanks again, Rob. And everybody, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube here so that nobody misses any episodes of Toque Talk.
That's correct.
Let's see if the end broadcast button works this week. Here we go.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.